Hey you guys, welcome back to Racket City Yardstead. We're going to be in the kitchen today. It's been a little while since we've done any canning, but I saved a lot of hot red peppers from the summer. I got them washed, I took their stems off, and I just popped them in the freezer so that I could compile them as the summer went along. And I am in need of hot sauce. So we're gonna can some hot sauce today. This is actually a first for me. I have only ever made hot sauce that you stored in the fridge before. I couldn't find an approved canning recipe for hot sauce that didn't call for tomatoes. The hot sauce in the Ball book calls for tomatoes. The hot sauce from the Center for Home Food Preservation calls for tomatoes. I don't know why it never came up for me before, but today I found a recipe on the Bernadine website that is hot peppers and vinegar, onions, garlic, a little bit of honey, and salt. And I thought that is exactly what I'm looking for. So we're going to make this and hope we really like it. It sounds right on track with the kind of things I normally put in my hot sauce that I would store in the refrigerator. The first thing I need to do is measure out my peppers. It calls for 5 cups of peppers. I'm hoping we might have enough for a double batch. If not, I'm gonna have to sit down and do some figuring of what exactly my ratios are. But let's go ahead and measure these out. My sweet little tiny extra bag from the end of the season. We'll see what we have left. I have a pretty decent mixture of peppers in here. I have jalapenos, I have serranos, I have tabascos, and cayennes. Okay, so there's another 4 cups. I do not think this is 2 cups, but we'll see. It's really close. So I think it will be fine just to treat the recipe as a double recipe. The main thing that's going to happen there is we're going to have double the vinegar, which is just going to make sure that this is at a pH that's safe for canning. Now that I've got my peppers measured out, I need to get the rest of my ingredients. So I am making a substitution here. It calls for white onion, but I have yellow onions and I think that's going to work just fine. And as far as safety is concerned, it's not a big deal to swap out what kind of onion you're using. So for a double batch, I need 1 cup of onions. If any of you have ever actually made this recipe before, you'll have to let me know what you think. I'll let you know what I think once it's done, but I know hot sauces are normally better if you let them sit for a while. So we probably won't want to crack into a jar of this for at least a few weeks. Yeah, that half an onion that was a big onion. Half of it's a cup. So that's all I need. Now that my onions are chopped up and in the pot, we are going to add about a tablespoon of salt. This recipe calls for kosher salt, but I have pink Himalayan salt. From what I have read, they're pretty comparable. It's said to add just a little bit less of the Himalayan salt because it can be a little bit saltier. And so add a little bit less, and then when your product is done, taste it. That way you are not over salting, and you can always add a little bit more salt. The next thing we need is garlic. I don't actually have any fresh garlic in my house right now, and so I'm going to use granulated garlic. It calls for a tablespoon per batch, so we are going to just use a tablespoon of granulated garlic per batch. Honey. This one is a little bit of an interesting ingredient to me. I've never actually added a sweetener, but it calls for 2 teaspoons per batch. And I think it probably just balances out the heat a little bit. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd rather go a little light on the honey than too much, just because we don't typically eat sweet hot sauces. The last thing we need to get in here is our white vinegar. It calls for 2¼ cups of vinegar. So I need to do that twice. So I get down at eye level, and that is just right for our first round of vinegar. Now I'll measure out another 2¼ cups. So I'm going to get a lid on this pot. It says bring it to a boil and then simmer it for 25 minutes. While that is going, I am going to grab my canning pot and my jars and get everything ready to go. I just scrubbed all of my jars really good. That's the last one to go in my pot. And now I'm going to top these with water and just get water to cover my jars. If you don't know, they used to tell you that you needed to sterilize your jars before canning with them. But they've since amended that recommendation. And if you're going to can something that calls for water bath canning longer than 10 minutes, you no longer have to sterilize your jars beforehand. You just want to make sure they're nice and clean. So this is really just to keep our jars nice and hot, so that when we put our hot sauce into the jars, there's no shock on the glass. I am going to get this on and grab some more water. While my sauce is simmering away back here, I thought it would be a good time to have a little conversation about water bath canners. So when I first got into canning, we already had our induction cooktop. And when I started looking into canners, I had a little bit of sticker shock, honestly, because you can't use an enamel water bath canner on an induction cooktop. It doesn't work. And so I started seeing all of these stainless steel water bath canners, and they had hefty price tags. And so I did some more research, and I realized you don't have to have something that's marketed as a water bath canner. And maybe to some people that seems really common sense, but I didn't know at first. And so I had to go digging for information. But I ended up with this pot. It's a 16-quart pot. It's stainless steel. It's got a nice thick bottom on it. I got it at TJ Maxx for like $25 or $30, which was a significantly smaller amount of money than what it costs to buy a stainless steel water bath canner. And I use it for all kinds of things. It's multi-purpose. I make my broth in it. I make jam in it. And so just don't get hung up on labels. If you're trying to get into canning, get yourself a big stock pot. As long as you can get 1 inch to 2 inches of water over the top of your canning jars, the pot works. Our hot sauce has finished simmering, and so now I need to add it to my blender. Whew. Oh, I don't know about this vinegar and hot pepper facial I'm getting. Keep my head back. I want to make sure I don't fill my blender too full because this is very hot. Got a towel for the top. I'm gonna blend this up. It's a beautiful color. Whew. It's spicy, y'all. So it's so beautiful. I'm gonna pour this out into this bowl for now so we can work in batches, but it does call for heating it back up on the stove. All right, you guys, time to pour the hot sauce back into the pot, and I wanted you to see how beautiful it is. Now that this is all pureed and back in the pot, we're gonna heat it back up on the stove, and then we'll get it jarred up. I do want to give the hot sauce a try. I'm a little nervous about this because I think it's very spicy, but I want to make sure that salt level is right since we use the pink Himalayan salt. It's good. It is very hot, but I think it's going to be great for hot wings, which is mostly what we do with hot sauce in our house. So I'm going to kick that up a notch. Get this heated up and we'll get it put in jars. Our hot sauce is heated up again and we can start filling our jars. If I can get one out of here. So this recipe called for jelly jars. They hold a cup. I think I'm going to grab a ladle. And we want to fill this to a 1/4 inch headspace. Try not to make a big mess because I already made some of a mess. Yep, that's perfect. And debubble our hot sauce. This hot sauce is pretty nice and thick actually, but that definitely makes debubbling even more important because it would be easy for some bubbles to get trapped in this stuff. So now that I debubbled, let's double check. Yep, that is perfect. I'm gonna go around the rim of my jar and make sure it's nice and clean so there's nothing to interfere with the seal of our lid. Got my clean lids here. Ring finger tight. Ooh, very hot. Back into our canner. Well, you guys, I ended up with 9 jars of hot sauce. They're all in our canner here. Ooh. So we're gonna put the lid on, get this up to a boil, and then set our timer for 10 minutes. Our hot sauce canned for 10 minutes. Then I took the lid off and let them just cool in the water for 5 minutes. And now it's time to take them out of the canner. Very excited about having these 9 jelly jars of hot sauce. See lots of chicken wings in our future. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. I hope if you have ever considered giving canning a try, this will show you just how easy it is. It's really not that scary and intimidating. And I'm excited about this hot sauce. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.